Welcome back to Catapult Your Business, where we help catapult the business one question at a time. My name is Casey Clark. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cultivate Advisors, and I am thrilled to bring this question to the table. This week, we are talking about how can you use social impact to fuel your growth. This is something that a lot of business owners have tried to do, maybe not done it correctly. Some people just think it's about the idea, but they never implement it. And others are thriving because they've put this social impact in play and they've done it the right way. So I've got a very special guest today. I want to bring to the call Andrea. Andrea, welcome to the call.
Hey, thanks, Casey. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited you're here. For those that don't know, Andrea is actually a super talented business advisor that works here at Cultivate. She's been with us for about a year and she is making waves. Now, her background is unbelievable. She actually owned a super successful business all throughout Southeast Asia. She helped scale it, ultimately got acquired, then went on to help grow that company, to help that achieve its goals, and then found her way to Cultivate. So, Andrea, so glad you're part of the team. And I know you've got 6 children, I think, right at home in Nevada where you're housed. So you're busy.
I am. Yeah, there's not a lot of dull moments, that's for sure. I keep pretty busy.
I bet. Well, for all the entrepreneurs who are like, I'm so busy. Just imagine running your business and having 6 children. That's what I would put into the mix. But you're an all-star, no doubt, Andrea. So glad to have you on the team, and everybody's listening in is going to get to hear some of your amazing wisdom here in just a moment. So, Andrea, you brought this question to me, and I absolutely love it, right? This idea of just how does social impact truly fuel growth of an organization? And I know you've worked on this a lot with some of the companies you work with, but I actually thought maybe it'd be fun to learn a little bit more about the business you ran. And I believe you had a social impact initiative as well that you tied to the business. Could you tell everybody listening in just a little bit about the business and that endeavor you had?
I can. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think to step back, I brought you this question because our tagline obviously is a world made better by entrepreneurs. And I believe so strongly in that. And I think that we have such an incredible impact on our communities. And I think, yes, to take it back to my humble roots, I was actually based in Cambodia and Southeast Asia for 10 years. So it was quite easy to add social impact elements because I was living in that community. I could see the need very clearly. I could integrate it into my business. And I would like to say that back then I was this amazing strategist and I was like, yeah, I'm going to integrate this and it's going to increase my sales and do this amazing thing for marketing. I wasn't. I was like, oh, this would be good to do. I need to do this. I live here. I need to be giving back. I need to be having a positive impact on my community. And so I started building those programs out. And then, quite honestly, realized the potential that it gave my business for growth by doing this. And it felt like a very good karma moment, right? Of like, oh, hey, I would like to think very altruistically. I chose this path and it really benefited in some pretty surprising ways. And so I love now being able to work with these small businesses that are doing incredible things in their community and often not knowing how to shout that from the rooftops in the same way we shout from the rooftops about our own businesses. So no, it's been a really fun transition.
Well, I love it. Well, and you're so right. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest keys that I see is that I heard 2 things. I heard one, are you doing this for the right reason? Right? You kind of spoke to that. Like you can't just go create something out of the sky and go, oh, this is going to add a lot of value. You have to identify the need. You truly have to go have the right intentions. And it's great if it ties to your business in some capacity and, of what your superpower, what your strength is, right? But there's this other part that you just brought up, which is ultimately like, if I do this, is there a way to tell the narrative or the story the right way that does help support my organization? And I think, as you know, working with a lot of the clients we get to work with, they don't always get that right. They just don't. So we're gonna break through that today for everybody listening in and see what we can kind of get from Andrea to help put into action for businesses. So stay tuned. It's going to be a lot of fun. Andrea, let's go down this path. What is social impact? I just think we should actually just back up all the way. Just to not make sure nobody's making any assumptions. Can you give an example maybe of social impact of one of your clients or even what you did? Or let's just talk a little bit about what is it first.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with what I did, and then I have a few clients who do it really successfully as well at this point. But really, from my perspective, I was living in a community that had a lot of opportunity for assistance in a, and I'm always going to put this out there, in a sustainable, well-managed way, right? We don't want to just go out, throw money at problems, hope it solves it. We need to look at social impact the same way we look at our business, from a very strategic, growth oriented, am I creating sustainable solutions for the people I'm involved with? So for instance, when we started, we actually founded a nonprofit because we wanted to hold ourselves accountable to those 501c3 rules, make sure we were doing our due diligence and doing it right. And then what we were able to do, and again, over time, as we learned how this worked, is we were able to really connect the community needs with the travelers want to help. And by being that conduit, we were really able to take that incredible generosity that our travelers had, but make sure we were using it in a very sustainable, well thought through, very well executed manner. And so that was really so social impact to me is how are we giving back to the communities that we are a part of, the organizations that we believe in, so that we are having a bigger impact on this world than just our business or just our job or whatever it is we do, that we are making sure we're having a collectively larger social impact.
Yeah. I mean, are there any companies that shouldn't do social impact? Like, are there any companies that shouldn't explore or try to brainstorm that you can think of?
That's a great question, Casey. I mean, there may be. I can't think of any. I think I would go back to your point. Which is you have to believe in it. It has to matter to you. And just like anything we do in our businesses, and I say this to my clients all the time, what's your why behind it? I mean, you probably championed that phrase, so I like how I'm quoting that back to you. But like, what is your why? Why are you doing this? What do you want the outcome of this to be? And I think you have to, just as much as we have to have that why as we run our business, as we scale our business, as we work with our teams, you have to have that why with social impact. You have to be bought in. So I guess I would answer is the only reason you wouldn't do this is you can't think of a why behind something. Yeah, you cannot. You'll get caught out and it just won't work. No.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, right? This is important though. If you're listening in, you're going, oh, I really want to grow my business. I want to use a social impact lever to make that happen. Probably actually not the right way to get to that, right? Like you really
come in another way, yeah.
Come at it from a different way and go, how could the superpower of my business or what I do or the types of, where my community is of customer base or even just where I personally live, whatever connection you have, where can I help? How can I help? What might work? Try to solve that root and get excited and be genuine because everyone will see through, if you're not truly genuine around the idea. And then you can start to incorporate it, strategize it into the business. And then, yes, you get to figure out how to go market and sell it to help fuel growth. But I always see, that's where I was kind of getting at, Andrea, is like, I see a lot of people bring me like, I just got to come up with some type of social impact piece. And, that'll totally help us grow. And I'm like, that's probably not going to go well for you. And the reason why is it's not coming from the right lens yet. And I think that's really important. So anybody listening in that's just like, oh, I checked out this podcast because I thought you'd give me tips on how to create my social impact. Not going to do that today. Actually going to tell you to do the opposite. Just go focus on running your business unless you truly are interested to go deep and figure out where you can make an impact within the communities that you serve. So let's just get that out of the way first.
I'm going to push back, Casey, and be like, we, as the eternal optimist that I am, I'm going to be like, everybody has a why. We all believe in something.
You should be able to find it.
You should, or it should be there. Yeah. It's in there. It's in your heart. You're doing something already. I just believe this, that majority of entrepreneurs are doing something already that benefits their wider community. And when we started, our first question was actually to our staff. We polled all of our staff and we were like, what do you need in your community that is going to make life better? And we got back incredible feedback. And I still push that with a lot of my clients. I just had a client do it, actually. They wanted to start some initiatives of social impact. They didn't have a necessarily like, this feels real. This is my why. So they put it out to their team. who should we be supporting? How should we be better players in our community? And they got some amazing answers with some very powerful whys. So it doesn't have to be involve your people, like get people excited about this. We all want to feel like we're having this incredible impact. And if you give people the opportunity to be part of that, you get incredible buy-in from your team. And it can be a real team building opportunity, actually.
Are you getting the advice you need for your business from this episode? Do you want to get more than just one question answered and have it customized to you and your business? Well, Cultivate Advisors works one-on-one with thousands of business owners every day. Let them help you scale your business today. Don't just listen to this episode. Take action and go to cultivateadvisors.com to see which advisor you get matched with and receive a free 2-hour business assessment on how you could scale your business to the next level. Act now at cultivateadvisors.com.
I just love the idea of pulling your staff in. That I believe strongly in like the shared vision, connecting a shared vision. Everybody has their vision, getting them all concise to one place. That's what makes organizations move very quickly. No different than this, right? It doesn't need to be your vision necessarily. So thanks for that call out. Well deserved. And I think the other thing that I think about with this though too is that a lot of times I think people think like, oh, I have to have like a product business. And that's just not true, right? Like, of course you have like the Toms, shoes. I really followed them when they grew and, we're giving shoes back to third world countries. And there were some really great things that came out of that. You can always see the products very quickly. I find the services are a little slower to uncover. And what I always want to share with people when they think about a social impact, because I've had several clients that I've worked with that we worked through this initiative. What we found was that it didn't always have to be a money thing, actually, right? A lot of times, you can come up with a way where your clients, like you mentioned, have a way to bring additional generosity, but you use that as a staple in terms of how you present it. And that's almost becomes a differentiator for yourself. Or maybe it doesn't even fully connect to the business and it's just something you're very passionate about. For me, I've put quite a bit of time, money, and resources personally into figuring out how to educate children on financials to draw entrepreneurship. I'm very passionate about it. I grew up in a blue collar family. No one taught me anything about money. It was all self-learned by hard knocks. And just for me, I'm like, if we don't teach this, we're screwed, right? And so you have to just find that connection or that thing you're excited about. But just keep in mind, it doesn't just have to be a product. I just wanted to share that clearly because I find a lot of service companies think they just have to give their service away for free when they come after this.
Oh, no.
And that's the last thing you actually should do. You're not actually solving a root impact. So anyway, had to put that into the ether for
and
those.
It's not sustainable. I mean, I think you're totally right. If you're doing that where you're giving your service for free, or even you're giving products that you can't afford to give, now you're not creating a sustainable solution. I think anytime we go into social impact, we have to be looking long term. Can this survive without me? How am I just being a part of this? I have an amazing client, shout out to David from Land Steward Design, who does incredible social impact work. He is an engineering firm, right? Like, so you tell me, you brainstorm how an engineering firm is gonna give back to the community, right?
I think everybody else wants to hear. Are you able to share what that social impact is?
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure he wouldn't mind if I shared. So he has a nonprofit where they do his particular engineering is working on landscape design and then also working on outside spaces that offer more to the community. So really bringing people who, we're all stuck in our cubicles or homes, bringing them outside, creating shared spaces that are really special and are conducive to an outdoor community. And he has set up community gardens. He has reached out and helped design more community-based outdoor spaces, right? So he's taken his skill set, his love for the whole value of outdoors, being there, family interaction, giving back, and he's found a way to bridge that. So I always love that as an example. Like, who would have thought some engineering firm could come up with these amazing social impact community initiatives? That seems like a stretch, right? It's not shoes. It's not, it's not the product like you were saying. And he really has. So I always think, where there's a will, there's a way. And like you said, being able to then marry those two things is really what propels growth for both of them, for the nonprofit side and the social impact side, as well as the business and entrepreneurial side.
I love it. So, I'm a massive process orientated person, right? Like I believe you have to have a system you've got to put in place for scale. So step one here that I've heard is you've got to identify, right? Like step one, we've got to identify what is that? Why? Is it a shared vision with your team? Is everybody behind it? Let's get there first. Let's get some ideas on the table. Now, number two, you started to talk a little bit about it. It's the strategization. It's the integration is probably the best word. It's like, how do you integrate that in to make it sustainable, something that can last and be easy, not become this. I've seen some people do this horrifically wrong and it becomes a massive distraction, actually.
Yeah.
And right. And it's not sustainable. I love the word that you chose. So any tips that come to mind of like when you go to think through like taking this idea to working through the strategy of figuring out how to implement? I realize it's hard without the exact situation, the exact business, but anything come to mind when you've worked with your clients around that?
Yeah, I think there's two real things. I think one of them is, you can start small and grow. Like there's no need to come in and drop a giant bomb on this idea. We can come in and make small impacts and see what works and what doesn't work and, strategize through doing it that way. Yeah. And I think the other thing that jumps out at me, we've been talking a lot. I was like, I started my own 501c3. So did David. Like that was the approach we took, but that doesn't necessarily make sense for everybody. I think that there are some ways to have some really key strategic partnerships with those community impact organizations where you're not necessarily I definitely created a lot of work for myself when I founded my own nonprofit. Like that was a commitment I made and it was real.
That's a big commitment.
And there were definitely times I was like, what was I thinking? So you don't have to do that, right? You don't have to like all in, I'm doing this huge 501c3. You can really think through like, okay, what do I want to have an impact on? Why do I want to do that? What's the story behind it that I can share so that other people get pulled in, whether it's my team or community members or clients or whatever it is. And then really think through, okay, how am I going to do that? Is that partnering with somebody in my community who's already doing this? Is that creating small initiatives that may grow over time? That's what I would say is this is, again, just like we talk about businesses, right? It's all about scalability. Like what are we putting in place to allow for this really nice growth pattern, but we don't have to jump in head first. We can dip our toe in and see how that feels.
I love it. The crawl, walk, run is massive. And I appreciate you bringing up the nonprofit because I think some people might have think like, I got to create a nonprofit. It's like, actually not true. That's if you want to go all the way. There are ways to go support other nonprofits or to find other people who own it or drive it. A few things that I just wrote down. I was just thinking here, like a lot of times when I work through this on the integration side, it's like, let's take no different than any other project. Let's look at where's the time going to go? Who's going to do this? Is the time there? Who's going to own it? Do we have that time allocated appropriately? Number two, any additional resources that are going to have to be deployed, whatever that might be. What will that cost us? What will that look like? And then three, just general money, like just how much will this cost in hard costs, right, to make that happen? And I think where people get off on the money side is they immediately look at the dollar amount and go, no way. Well, whoa, back up, right? We see this problem all the time with businesses. Go back to your pricing per widget calculator. If you don't have one, you should be talking to Cultivate, by the way, shameless plug. But you should be getting into your pricing calculator and tying that in, right? Like putting that into play and going, for every client, it's going to cost X amount for us to do this program. And that's why we're now going to charge what we're going to charge. And you're going to be able to do that in majority of industries, unless you obviously have some pricing constraints. And so just be mindful that when you go after this, it doesn't always have to be a burden to the business, actually. Sometimes it can just be about aligning the shared interests from you, your team, and customers that they would enjoy or love to be a part of. And that's actually what will start to propel and create that differentiator that will allow you to drive marketing and sales, which I know we're going to next. But anyway, I just had to share those perspectives.
I think you're totally right. And I think also the question that people are terrified to even bring to the table when we talk about social impact is, what is my ROI on my social impact initiative? And I think any other initiative we do, right? You sit down with your advisor and we're like, hey, let's talk about ROI. Like, how are we going to get a return on this? What's that going to look like? We are so scared to say that because we're like, we're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts. We can't be talking about ROI. Right. It's not appropriate. I'm calling baloney on that. Like we can still talk about ROI because again, I'm editing myself for your podcast, Casey.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you.
I'm calling baloney on. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, we would never start an initiative. Well, as long as you have a Cultivate Advisor, you would never start an initiative without looking at the ROI of that initiative. So why should social impact be any different? It really shouldn't. We should be able to say, hey, I am doing this out of the goodness of my heart, and I'm still going to make darn sure my business can survive it, and that this is going to be a sustainable solution. Right? It goes both ways. It helps both organizations, both initiatives. So yeah, that's what I would put is ROI is not a dirty word when we're talking about social impact. You have to take the time to do that. Doesn't make you a bad person, doesn't mess up your karma. It just really shows that you're thinking through how you want this to go and what you want the end goal to be, which is sustainable, clear, foundationally built initiatives. So yeah, say ROI, talk all about it.
Well, you talked about this crawl, walk, run idea, right? So I also just think about like sometimes the way you start is very different than how it ends, right? So just also keep in mind, you might go, you know what, we're going to make a donation at some percentage to keep it really easy. But then later on, it might turn into a way more involved integration, you know, a year later after you've piloted and kind of proved out that it was attractive to your client base, it was easy to sustain, right? So just whatever ideas you brainstorm or whatever you're thinking through, you go through the identification stage, then you have to go through the integration stage. Now,
I had a client who just added an optional donation to every service she gave, right? It was optional.
It doesn't have to be mandatory either.
Explained the why, she put it out there, and multiple clients were really excited to be involved in it. And so then it could scale from there.
Thanks for tuning in to Catapult Your Business, where Cultivate Advisors is helping you catapult your business one question at a time. Are you running your business, or is your business running you? At Cultivate Advisors, they'll match you with an expert advisor and do a free 2-hour deep dive for your business. This will give you the clarity you need on how to get your business to the next level. Cultivate has worked with thousands of businesses. What do you have to lose? So head over to cultivateadvisors.com and sign up for your free 2-hour session.
Now, the third one, right, is now how do you use this to fuel growth, right? So it's for me, it's identify, integrate, fuel, right? And it's like, how do you, I'm going to use another dirty word, how do you leverage the fact that you're doing this in order, right, to promote it? But gosh, you have got to do that the right way, because it could come off negatively, right? That you're just trying to gain more profits for growth. You've got to be careful to approach this. Again, that's where what we talked about earlier, right? Being very genuine about this approach is going to be extremely important. It's got to just fuel from your body, like in terms of like the storytelling and the narrative of why this is important. If it doesn't, you haven't found the root yet. But what ideas do you have? Let's say you're going to do this in the right way. What comes to mind of how do you use this to support your marketing and sales initiatives to help fuel growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right. Leverage goes right up there with ROI. Nobody wants to talk about it. They want to go do their social impact and just hope that karmically it comes back to them. I think in some ways that does sometimes work out, but I also think if we're more strategic about it, we can approach this in a really genuine way. And I think to your point, you have to have that why dialed in, and you have to have your story dialed in so that it feels very genuine, but also people understand the impetus for all of this. It's not out of left field. And then when you look at some really strategic, like, okay, how am I going to utilize this to grow sales, marketing? I mean, I always tell people a story where I had a great client, and they were sending out a newsletter every month. It had a 30% open rate, pretty good, right? They got a few leads from it. They had been running a social initiative for years, not really talking about it. Some of their clients liked it, but it wasn't really out there. We started a newsletter for their social impact initiative. We would highlight somebody who had, gotten something from it, do a little bio, do a Q&A. It was a really simple newsletter. They got double the number of leads from that newsletter as they ever did from our salesy newsletter, let's say, that we sent out, right? So it's this really interesting soft sell is what I would call it. Again, like, it even makes me uncomfortable when I say it, because I know the genuineness of how most of my business owners approach this. And like, it can be an uncomfortable advising conversation when I'm like, you've got to leverage your nonprofit work. You've got to get that social impact story out there. But as soon as they do, what they realize is people love to hear that. They love to be a part of it. It engages your clients in a very different way than you've been engaging them prior to now. And it allows them to engage with you on a more personal, you're selling your personal brand to some extent through this. And like I said, I've seen it as an incredible soft sales tool where they don't feel you're cramming it down their throat. It's not one more like, what can we do for you newsletter? It's like, hey, look what we're doing for our community. This is why you should be engaged with us. This is why we're who you want to work with, because this is our karma. And it just is incredible to see the impact it can have.
I'm going to pull back on the macro kind of card here just to go back a little bigger picture. And like, when I hear what you're saying, for me, how I would have described it is very similar, but just in a different lens. So it might resonate for others listening in. You have to view the social impact as a new offer for your business, right? Like you have products and services, and then you have offers for those products and services. This is a new offer, which means it's going to be attractive to a certain percentage of your clientele or attract a new audience of clientele into the organization. And so the word I would use actually is you have to build a campaign that might involve email newsletter, that might involve social posting, that might involve online ads, that might involve a huge billboard over your brick and mortar. It depends on the
or community events, right? Like
right, yeah, or or a donation to a municipality or whatever it might be. The reality is, you need to build a campaign around that, and you need to think no differently than how you would think about a new product or service in your organization, and put that much effort behind it. Otherwise, it's not worth it to actually do it. Potentially, in terms of marketing and selling it for fueling growth, always worth it to do the impact. Just if you really want to use it to provide a differentiator or get additional traction, you're going to have to think like that. And so I just think back to the classic like HubSpot training and development that they've provided, right? Where it's like, look, everybody you want to market to, you start with awareness. Ultimately, you want to get them to take an action, and then they're going to make a decision. We always forget about awareness. We always want to come after them with a decision, right? And so we want them to go like, if you come out and you send out your newsletter or your ad or whatever, I don't care what marketing medium you choose to use in this point. If you come out and you're like, buy now because you will give this much money back to this community, that's not attractive actually, and it will go painfully wrong. Instead, it needs to start with awareness. Did you know that we've done X, Y, and Z, and we wanted to give a big thank you to all of our clients because we've put this much of your this much that you've given us in revenue into a donation towards X, Y, and Z, or whatever the nuance is. Holy cow, that's a different conversation. So it's a really good awareness campaign. And that's what I want everybody to take away from this is like, that's what you drive. And I feel like your example was perfect of like the salesy decision-based newsletter to the awareness newsletter around this topic that people could resonate with, naturally created a call to action and pulled people in.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, one of the other things that people sometimes miss, and again, we're getting back to this, how to leverage, your social impact, is you're then working with different partnerships. Potentially you're working with your clients, potentially like who can you bring in as part of this? It's hard when we're business owners, we have certain relationships with everybody we work with. We have the partnership relationship, we have the affiliate relationship, we have the client, business relationship. I think when you create more of a social campaign and social impact, those relationships can really be strategically advantageous for you, right? Now, suddenly a client is a partner. They're partnering with you to raise money. Suddenly an affiliate is, you're supporting them and they're seeing that. Like it just can kind of change the dynamic of some relationships and really create your business as more of a community. And they are way more likely to tell their friends about you. They are way more likely to utilize you again as a business, purchase from you, whatever the case may be, because they now see you from a different angle.
Well, what you're talking about is they have a story they can tell about you.
Yeah.
So you come up more in conversation, right? If there's no story about you, right? Yeah. We've worked with a lot of PR firms as clients. I've hired a bunch of PR firms. Like they're the first to tell you, right? If there's no compelling story here, I don't know what you think's going to happen. I need to work for you, right? It's not like I just wave my magic wand and you show up where you want to show up with placement. And I think the second thing I heard you talk a little bit about is really extending your reach. When you have third parties or other individuals involved, you start to really spread a further reach, which that also can help fuel the growth, besides just telling everybody about it. And then the third thing I heard you say, which is brilliant, I mean, in today's age, who buys anything without checking social proof? Who? Right. And the best social proof is third party. Third party recommendations is the best social proof, right? We all have the review game we can play. We all have, all these different accreditations we can get and all that. But having a third party that is connected to a social impact come out and speak on your behalf, game changer. Absolute game changer, especially if you're a smaller business trying to break in to these, 7, 8, 9-figure, size businesses that so few get to. As we know, based on, SBA data, it's like, you got to go for it. Don't just feel like you got to charge this all by yourself. And I think that's a really important message that you're sharing with everybody today. So fantastic.
Yeah. And I want to go ahead.
I was going to say, well, this will be the closing remark here. I said, we're wrapping up on time, but Andrea, I just wanted to come to you. If you had final piece of advice or final kind of comments to share around this, would love to hear. I know everybody's listening in intently.
No pressure. I think what I would say is allow it, go back to the not letting those be dirty words. Allow it to be a really important piece of your business that you're okay leveraging to grow the big picture, knowing it's a win-win for everybody. And then the other thing, to your awareness point, make sure that awareness goes across your full community, not just to clients, not just to partners, but to your team. I mean, just get everybody engaged, right? Bring them all in, tell your story to everybody so that it can then have the biggest impact possible on the community, but also your people, and just that good feeling. Like, we just need to know this makes us feel good. Giving back, having a positive impact, it makes us feel good. We are entrepreneurs because we want to have an impact. None of us came into this, thinking we wouldn't. And so allow that to really spread and bring everybody on board and just make it fun.
Fueling growth is not just a sales and marketing lever. That's what I just heard you say.
Yeah.
It is so much more about aligned vision. It's so much more about an aligned objective together. And it can cause retention of your team, to make retention of your team easier. I mean, there's just so many levers it pulls if you do it right. So just to validate for everybody listening in, we kind of came up with a 3 simple step process. 1, go identify. Again, great tips and advice here from Andrea to go back to your teams, let them have a say in it. Number 2, integrate, figure out how it integrates, figure out the pricing, the time allocation, how to approach it. There's multiple levers. Don't forget about the crawl, walk, run. And then get rid of the dirty words on number 3 there, right? Like, just go for it. Figure out how are you going to help fuel the growth, and make sure the story is told appropriately. Treat it like it's its own campaign. Andrea, this was fantastic. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. I know why your clients absolutely adore you and why you've been so successful here at Cultivate. So thank you for all your hard work and dedication to truly making the world better for entrepreneurs. For those listening in, maybe you want to chat with Andrea. For those who don't know, we do 2-hour free advising sessions where we'll actually sit down and help you break down your business. If you want to sit down with Andrea based on this conversation, when you reach out to us on our website at cultivateadvisors.com, let us know. We'll get you in touch with Andrea if that's who you'd like to meet with. So, Andrea, thanks again for being here, and thanks for all the special wisdom. For all of our entrepreneurial community that's listening in, trying to figure out how to bring social impact into their business, kudos to you. Keep driving, keep grinding, keep thriving, and live your best entrepreneurial journey. And we'll see you next time on Catapult Your Business, where we help catapult it one question at a time. Thanks all.